Ah yes, the Pokémon Black and White anime, or Best Wishes as it's called in Japan. The series that's widely known in the community as the absolute worst part of the Pokemon anime. Yeah, lots of people heavily despise the Gen 5 anime. What do I think of this series? I can honestly say that it was a decent series that gets way more hate than it deserves. It's not amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly not a steaming hot pile of garbage either. I recently rewatched and reviewed every single episode on Twitter under the hashtag RewindBW, so everything that I watched is still pretty fresh in my memory. I have a pinned tweet that describes my final thoughts of the series after watching it, but I figured that I should make it in video form to fully and clearly get my thoughts and points across in a more detailed fashion. This video will be split up into different sections, so I'll leave timestamps in the description for each topic. So without further ado, let's get right into this Pokemon Black and White retrospective. Let's first take a look at our main heroes for this series, and we'll start off with none other than our favorite kid from Pallet Town, Ash Ketchum. Now, our boy Ash was certainly a huge point of controversy for the Black and White anime, and to this day he still kind of is. Throughout the first batch of Black and White episodes, Ash was acting like a rookie trainer. I mean, he still knew some of the basics of Pokemon training, but he made some serious mistakes in the first batch of episodes. He straight up threw Pokeballs at Pokemon without battling them first. He forgot moves that he most definitely saw in the past, and forgot basic type matchups in the beginning. Since there was no passage of time between Diamond and Pearl and Black and White, an in-universe reason for this happening that I like to believe is that Ash took an extended break from training after the Sinnoh League, causing him to become rusty. But that's just headcanon at the end of the day. An out-of-universe reason for Ash's skills in the beginning getting reset is because Gen 5, for both the games and anime, were meant to be a soft reboot for the franchise. This meant that the writers wanted to introduce new fans to Pokemon, so I guess they had to use someone to re-explain things that older fans already knew. And that someone was unfortunately Ash. In my episode reviews on Twitter, I called these moments re-explanatory Ash moments, or Ream for short. People really thought that this was a brand new Ash because of this, and I find that funny because we see this in the very first episode. Now, Ash did eventually get his groove back, but him regressing in the beginning was kinda jarring considering he was so good in the previous series. Also, people like to believe that Ash during Black and White was incredibly stupid. Look, I can't deny the fact that he was dumbed down from Diamond and Pearl, but except for a few moments, he most definitely was not a brain-dead idiot. Some even say that he was worse in this series than how he was in the original series. Like, what? No, Ash in that series was truly a stupid moron. He was a little more snarky in Black and White though, so that led to some pretty entertaining moments from him. Despite all of this, Ash is still Ash in the sense that he's still an adventurous, rambunctious kid who cares about all Pokemon, wants to befriend all Pokemon, and would risk a lot for the sake of not only his own, but for wild Pokemon as well. All in all, Ash may not be the same battler that he was in the previous series, but he's the same person with the same heart. Now it's Iris's turn. Now, believe it or not, Iris was actually a pretty tolerable character. Crazy, right? I remember hating Iris back when these episodes were airing because of...
You don't get it. You act like a little kid. You are a little kid. We did it! We did it! Whoa! You're that excited about catching a little Pidove? What a kid! Hex you!
But she honestly wasn't too bad. Don't get me wrong, she definitely had her annoying moments, but her little kid remarks toward Ash just had me like, okay, whatever. And when she's not berating Ash, she's actually a pretty fine character. I'll give her this. She's a really good battler, and she actually has one of the best backstories for a Pokegirl. But I wish she had more development, or the development that she did have not be so scattered throughout the story. Because her focused development episodes were really good. At the end of the day, Iris may be a pretty flawed character, but she's not terrible. It's evaluation time for the last member of the Black and White crew. Back when this series was still airing, I didn't hate Silent, but I didn't really like him either. He was just kind of there for me. But after the rewatch, I came to appreciate his character. He was way more amusing and entertaining than I remembered. He was pretty charming, and while not a perfect Brock replacement, he was still a fine replacement nonetheless. My only problem with Silent is that, as a character, he doesn't really stand on his own that well. He's really good when he's with Ash and or Iris, but on his own he's nowhere near as amusing as he would be otherwise. and it's reflected in all of his focused episodes except for his special episode. But even in that episode, he was interacting with Brock. It's honestly a shame that Silent needs other characters to make him entertaining, but luckily those moments are few and far between, so that makes him more enjoyable in that aspect. Alright, I can confidently say that the Pokemon in this series are full of personality. Yeah, there are those few Pokemon that have zero personality and are kind of just there, but for the most part, the personalities for our heroes' Pokemon are definitely present. In terms of battling, they were just okay as a whole. Could have been better, could have been worse, but whatever. I'm not going to go through every single Pokemon they all own, but I'll go through all the Pokemon that stood out to me. Oshawott was the comedic starter of the series, and it played that role really well, and it was a decent battler at that. Pignite may have a rehashed backstory, but it was still a sad one nonetheless, and it was a very good battler that I wish evolved into Emboar. Such an underrated Pokemon, and y'all can fight me on that. Crocodile was Ash's best Unova Pokemon hands down. Its personality was great, and it was an awesome battler. Leavanny is underrated, Emolga was a cute troublemaker, Pansage was pretty much an extension of Silent, which was neat. Y'all get the point. Of course, there are more examples, but I don't want to make this video longer than it's already gonna most likely be. Team Rocket was another big point of controversy considering their goofy comedic personalities were replaced with serious no-nonsense personalities. Then after the Unova League, they kind of went back to their comedic personalities, like 50%ish. Then they completely reverted back to their old selves at the start of the Decolor Islands arc. And for about 70% of the series, they didn't even blast off, they just escaped. Yeah, not the most consistent versions of Team Rocket if we're being honest. Heck, the Japanese voice actors for Team Rocket have even stated that they didn't enjoy voicing them in this series. I myself have pretty mixed feelings on Team Rocket during Black and White. During this series, Team Rocket was treated as if they were secret agents rather than some clueless grunts. I would be fine with that if they themselves were more entertaining. I didn't like their personalities because they felt so out of character, and outside of their plot arcs and very few other occasions, they were pretty boring. I also didn't like the fact that Wobbuffet was absent for the entire series until literally the final episode. Look, I understand why that was the case narratively, but it still felt weird without Wobbuffet being there. What I did like about them was, well, their plot arcs. Those episodes were very entertaining to watch even with their new personalities. I also like how Team Rocket only appears when it's relevant to the plot, and even then, they don't interact with Ash and company unless their plans interfere with each other. Team Rocket going back to their comedic personalities towards the end of this series was cool and all, but at that point, there was only like 20 episodes left, so it didn't even really matter at that point. All in all, I appreciate the writers for trying something new with Team Rocket, but it just resulted in them being just okay at best. Alright, this section is probably going to take up most of the video, so let me not waste any time. On the surface, it's just like any other Pokemon series that came out at the time. It was Ash and friends traveling from city to city collecting gym badges to compete in that region's Pokemon League. But just like any other series, they tried some things to make it look unique. In that aspect, I can say that they tried, ? Yeah, getting deeper than just the surface, Black and White's story just wasn't great. It started off nice and fresh with brand new companions, new personalities for Team Rocket, and the series moving at a much faster pace, but even then, this series was met with controversy right from the start. With people not liking the new companions, the Snivy vs Pikachu battle, Team Rocket's serious personalities, and Ash's skill being reset for the purposes of bringing in new fans to the franchise. Like I said, this was a fresh start to the Black and White anime and gave the feeling of something new. I didn't mind this at all because although Diamond and Pearl was an amazing series, by that point everything for the most part was starting to get pretty predictable and formulaic. So in that aspect, I applaud Black and White for trying to shake things up a little bit. I mentioned the pacing earlier, and I would say for the first 20 or so episodes, Black and White was moving at a fast and steady pace. I mean, think about it. By the 7th episode, Ash already had 5 Pokemon, and by the 23rd episode, Ash already had 3 badges. So yeah, the series was moving at a nice pace, but then tragedy struck at the worst possible time and changed the course of the Black and White anime. On March 11th, 2011, a major earthquake and tsunami struck Japan and caused a nuclear disaster. These unfortunate events took the lives of thousands of people and destroyed hundreds of thousands of buildings. There was a Team Rocket vs. Team Plasma 2-parter, and the first part was originally supposed to air on March 17th, a week later. These two episodes were very important to Black and White's overall plot, but due to the fact that these episodes had the destruction of Castelia City and contained levels of violence, these episodes were cancelled and never aired, thus removing them from continuity. It sucks because these two episodes looked like they would have been fantastic. Since these episodes were very important to the plot but never aired, the writers were pretty much forced to rewrite most, if not all, of Black and White's story in a very short period of time. This was bad because the events that were supposed to take place as a result of this two-parter ended up getting scrapped. It sucks because these two episodes had like 15 to 20 episodes of perfect build-up with Zekrom, Team Rocket, and Team Plasma that ultimately meant nothing in the end. After these episodes were cancelled, Black and White kind of lost its focus and was never really able to make a full recovery. The pacing took a hit and the story was all over the place. Now, despite all of this happening, there were still some amazing episodes and arcs. The tournament arcs were great, the Clay, Skyla, and Bryson gym battles were all amazing, the Meowth traveling with Ash arc was amazing as well, the Meloetta / Operation Tempest arc was fantastic, and the Team Plasma arc that we did end up getting was pretty solid, although it could have been better. Some other cool things happened, like the return of Dawn, Cynthia, Charizard, and even Claire. While these were great, at the same time, Black and White spawned some of the absolute worst episodes in the entire anime. A few that come to mind are the Ash vs. Elisa gym battle, the Axie filler in the Unova League, and the episode where Iris left the group. The Decalore Islands arc was pretty boring aside from a few episodes, and the Unova League was just utter garbage. The Ash vs. Stefan battle was great, but that's literally the only good part of the Unova League. Trip was a trash rival, and the way he was written out of the series was so bad. Ash beats him in the preliminaries of the Unova League of all places, and then he's literally never seen again. And don't even get me started on the atrocity that is Ash versus Cameron. Ugh. While I'm talking about the negatives, let's talk about the animation. Don't get me wrong, the animation in Black and White at the time was revolutionary, phenomenal, and was the starting point for fantastic visuals in the Pokémon anime. The problem was the move animations were constantly reused and is more prevalent in the second half of the series. I'm not exactly sure why this is, but I definitely noticed it in my rewatch. Now, despite all of these negatives, the positives kind of balance it out in my opinion, and I found there to be a good amount of fun moments, charming moments, and some genuinely funny moments thanks to the Pokemon's personalities, the group's chemistry from time to time, and the interactions with some of the rivals. The overall ending was honestly kinda weak, but I will confidently say that the final episode of Black and White was fantastic. Never has the transition from one region to the next been so smooth and satisfying. All in all, while the story itself was unfocused, has some poor writing choices, and was kind of all over the place, there are indeed some fantastic and fun moments shown from time to time. In conclusion, the Pokemon Black and White anime is a decent series. It's certainly flawed in many aspects, but regardless, it still had plenty of fun, charming, and fantastic moments. Although it's still my least favorite series, I can say that I did enjoy Black and White more after this rewatch, and it doesn't deserve all the hate that it gets from the community. Although, it doesn't help that it sits between what the community considers the two best seasons of the anime. The Black and White anime definitely had a plan and knew exactly what it wanted to be, but because of early unfortunate circumstances that were out of the writer's control, this series lost focus and wasn't able to make a full recovery. It ended up being average at best when it could have actually been a pretty good series. Given the circumstances and all that this series had to go through behind the scenes, I feel like the final product we got was probably one of the better possible outcomes. And while it is certainly far from perfect, Black and White could have been much, much worse. If you made it to the end of this video, thanks for watching. For those who follow me on Twitter already, y'all better be happy because I did this for y'all. And for those who don't follow me on Twitter, I'll leave a link to it in the description. See you.